It's a Friday, which means we've carved out our last portion for a special interview. So here's the context of our interview today. The World Food Program has a warning for all of us. More countries will feel the burn as food and energy prices continuously rise. Hunger threatens Ukraine directly, but the fallout from the war has far-reaching implications. As these stories tend to go, it will leave the socially and economically vulnerable hungry first. So for some insight, we connect with the director of the WFP Seoul Office, Marian Yun. Good morning, Miss Yun.
Good morning, Lena. Very nice to be here with you today.
Thank you very much for joining us. So I have some heavy-hitting, hard-hitting questions this morning for you, hoping that you can provide us with a better context. We've definitely been seeing a surplus of food security headlines in recent times, especially with the current ongoing Ukraine crisis, putting more strain on the supply chain and, of course, its prices. How do you assess the situation in Ukraine?
Well, it's been about a month since the conflict broke out, and the situation is deteriorating by the day. And here I'm really referring to the scale of the population movement that we see on the ground. Right now, the United Nations has made a flash appeal to provide assistance to 12 million people. So that just tells you the scale of the impact. 6.5 million people are internally displaced, meaning they have fled their homes inside the country in Ukraine. And 3.9 million have fled to neighboring countries as refugees. And these are predominantly women and children. In many areas in the region, as well, particularly in the country, food and drinking water shortages are being reported. And this includes the capital, Kiev, where food supplies are also running low. You see the grocery store shelves becoming more and more empty and not being replenished. And many of the residents are taking shelter in places like metro stations. We're facing vast logistical challenges because existing systems are not functioning as they used to. Infrastructure is being damaged and destroyed. And obviously, security and access remain key challenges, as well as these conditions making it hard for cooperating partners to work on the ground. And as a result of this, we have massive funding needs. Our organization, the World Food Program, is calling for $590 million for the next 4 months. So this can maybe give you an indication of what the situation is looking like on the ground.
And certainly a sense of urgency attached to that relief that's immediately needed. We actually had a chance to speak with a reporter on the ground situated in Western Ukraine not too long ago. She mentioned in passing that all donations and interests are welcomed. But in your expert opinion, what do the people of Ukraine and refugees need the most right now? Food and drinking water is something that you were quick to mention. I mean, these are basic necessities.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Lena. It really is the basic services, the basic essentials that the people need right now. This includes obviously safety and protection, shelter, as I mentioned as well. But whether they are taking shelter or they are on the move, the key requirement right now is food and access to clean water, and also medicine and healthcare, where people are hurt or in need of medical attention. When we talk about food, the retail shops that are somehow able to operate at some levels, there are areas where this is the case. And so what we try to do is, in those contexts, we try to provide cash assistance rather than food, so that it gives the people a little bit more choice and ability to purchase other urgent requirements in addition to food and clean water, as I mentioned.
So, for example, there was this big hype around people booking Airbnbs in Ukraine to immediately help those who are still in the country. That kind of cash flow would be helpful, in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. Because we forget that it's difficult to say, well, they need only food or water. I mean, they may need a variety of other different things,
Mm.
and so where cash is an appropriate means of support,
Mm.
WFP does also provide cash and also vouchers that are linked to retail
Mm.
stores that can provide whatever commodity it is that the population need.
We've recently heard about Koreans and Korean companies joining the effort to help Ukraine aid. Is WFP also receiving contributions from Korea directly?
Indeed, we are. Excuse me. The Republic of Korea has been a long time donor to the World Food Program, even before the Ukraine crisis hit. In fact, in 2020, South Korea was our top 10 donor governments, and in last year it remained in the top 20. In terms of Ukraine, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs recently pledged, actually gave us $1.5 million to provide emergency relief to the people affected inside Ukraine. And this donation is going towards the purchase and distribution of immediate response rations. These are rations that are the objective of these rations is to provide at least 5 days of food, especially for people who are on the move. And so this is the first kind of package of assistance that WFP gives to people in immediate need. And this is enough to actually assist 112,000 Ukrainians over the next 4 months. So it's a huge and very welcome and generous contribution. We've also had a blockchain company in Korea step up with about 1 billion Korean won. This is approximately 823,000 US dollars. And in addition to that, many individuals in South Korea have opened up their purses to donate through various online platforms that will go towards the Ukraine response. But Lena, let me just end this question by saying that, you know, the needs are outpacing the donations coming in. We have $18.9 billion of requirement this year alone. And we will not be able to reach this without some phenomenal level of generosity across all our donors, including South Korea.
All right, which is why we decided this was a timely interview for our listeners from across the world to hear the cries and hear the urgency of the situation. All those donations, small and big, amount to a great deal of help that's needed immediately, it seems. I do have to ask, Ms. Yun, how has the current Ukraine crisis impacted the World Food Program's aid to mitigate food situation globally? Perhaps a bigger question at hand.
This is a really important question, Lena, and one that the World Food Program is really concerned about, because at the start of the year we were already seeing global inflation pushing really beyond boundaries that we were used to, pushing the price of both food and fuel, and this has, you know, increased our operating costs by something like $42 million a month. That's just the increase. When the conflict in Ukraine broke out, it had a global impact and drove up even more the cost of food and fuel, as well as other aspects such as global supply chain services. And so this is adding another 29 million to our operating costs, in addition to the 42 I mentioned. So you can just see how quickly and how steeply the cost of food and fuel is going up. And so today WFP alone is being forced to pay an estimated $71 million more than we were a few months ago, to do the same thing, to buy the same amount of food and to assist the same amount of people. That's how much more it's costing us. And on top of that, the number of people who are going hungry is also rising. So, yeah. So
it seems that it is always the socially and economically vulnerable that gets the shorter end of the stick first, and the narrative is also true with what's happening in the ripple effects of the Ukraine crisis. While the food crisis directly impacts, of course, close neighboring countries, I think that's easy for us to comprehend. Just to provide a better context for our listeners, how does it also impact other parts of the world? Of course, the supply chain is complicated. How we trade is much more complex, and maybe the time of the Cold War for Russia. In the recent months, the WFP has been alarming widespread of food insecurity watch lists, such as the hunger hotspots, also known as the Ring of Fire. That's an entirely new concept for me. Could you care to explain?
Yes, absolutely. When you look at Ukraine and Russia, the two countries alone produce about 30% of all global wheat exports. And when you look at corn, it produced about 20%. And these two commodities alone, in the 84 countries or so that WFP is responding, these two commodities are the two most important and most required commodities. So the Ukraine conflict, just by looking at these two important commodities, is having a major impact on the ability of the vulnerable population that we're serving in the Middle East and Africa, all around the world, because supply chain is being disrupted and the costs are going up. So that's just one element of how the Ukraine conflict is affecting not just neighboring countries, but really having a reverberation worldwide. This reference to the Ring of Fire, it's very concerning to see the globe and to see how the food insecurity that is being driven by climate shock, conflict, COVID-19, and now the spiraling cost of food and fuel. It's not just affecting certain parts of the globe. It's really like a ring of fire around the whole planet. It spreads from the Sahel in West Africa to Central African Republic, South Sudan, Horn of Africa. And then, you continue around, you reach Syria, Yemen, north of the Black Sea, east to Afghanistan. These countries, there are millions of people who are on the brink of starvation. And if you continue circling even further, you reach Central America, where the dry corridor of drought is driving migration. And then in the Caribbean, in Haiti, climate shock, as well as rising insecurity and rising criminality, are all kind of converging to deepen food insecurity and the number of people going hungry.
Ms. Yun, last but not the least, how can Koreans or our listeners engage with solving this problem?
The Korean people, in my opinion, understand hunger very well. I mean, it is in our very recent history that as a country, we were able to end or eliminate hunger in our country. But we have a history of that experience, and as a country kind of rising above it. And I think this goes a long way in the understanding and support that the government of South Korea gives to organizations like the World Food Program, not only because its official development assistance is going up and there is tremendous commitment to keep that trend, but because of this history and because of our deep history with the World Food Program here in South Korea, where we were up until 30 years ago providing assistance in different parts of the country. We expect the Republic of Korea to continue supporting us, and they are also part of our executive board member. On the private side, I think everyone can also do their bit. There has been a generous outpouring of interest and concern and support to the Ukrainian people. Anyone who's interested in learning about us and donating to our program can always access our website, which is ko.donate.wfp.org. But even just through interest and engaging in what's going on and advocating for peace, I think everyone can do something. And so it's on that note that I would really like to end this response. Thank you.
Ms. Yun, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. I hope our listeners are walking away thinking there is something more proactive we could do, even on a small scale. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Lena.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.